we are going to move ahead with slightly more topical questions as part of the panel. I'll bring the rest of the panel up. You can grab a microphone and a podium, and I will introduce our new moderator and the panel. Please welcome Road, Rail, Space, Exploring the Dimensions of Autonomous Mobility, and welcome back to the main stage our lovely moderator, the Mobility Division Manager at Bitkom, Niels Heller. And his panel.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, Daniela, for your very interesting introduction into the rail dimension of autonomous transport. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to our two new additions on the panel. We are joined by Katrin Bacic on my very right. Katrin is the CEO of Unio Enterprise, and what she's exactly doing, we're going to learn about more very soon. And then I have Jan Lüdke here. He's Managing Director of VIA Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And if you don't know VIA yet and don't know what Jan is working on, we're going to learn that too. But before I'm going to ask questions to my panelists, I want to ask questions to you. Who of you has used an autonomous way of transport before? First, I want to ask autonomous trains, be it metro, some other train. Show of hands, please. Okay, a few. Where? I heard Nuremberg, very good in Germany, but you already mentioned some other examples as well. And who of you has used an autonomous car or an autonomous bus before? All right, a little less. Where? Here. Very good. Very good. So not only abroad, but also here. But we still see there's some room of improvement, and we want all of you to enjoy the perks of autonomous transport. But to start off this panel, Daniela, we heard a lot about what you are working on. Katrin, what is it that brings you to the field of autonomous driving? What is it that you're working on, you and your company?
Yeah, what brings me to autonomous mobility? Actually, not an obvious topic. So I'm CEO of Unio, a satellite service operator bringing space down to Earth. Because what we just heard from you, Daniela, is all the use cases, the future use cases we want to see as also customer, what we need is always on seamless connectivity. And what we also see right now in the market is that with terrestrial networks such as 5G, we have physical limitations. So yeah, what brings me to autonomous mobility is kind of, I want to bridge the space, the satellite connectivity, the non-terrestrial infrastructure with the terrestrial to really assure seamless and fast, super reliable, and always-on connectivity to enable all these future use cases.
So you are enabling use cases, and Jan, you are working on some use cases. What is it that you're working on?
Yeah, so our involvement in autonomous mobility is, as VIA, we operate software and sometimes also operations for on-demand services. So we work with public transport companies or cities to launch very flexible on-demand services that are kind of like Daniela just mentioned. The train should be in the future really on demand. And a lot of these projects we are operating with at least part autonomous vehicles. So we are testing kind of whatever technology is currently available in our live services, usually in the form of mixed fleets. So some of the vehicles will be autonomous, some of them will be regular vehicles, and that allows us to have running on-demand services that kind of fulfill the demand, but still kind of go with the development and participate in the development of autonomous technology, specifically in the public transport use case, which I'll probably mention a few times now, but that's my involvement.
Very interesting. Daniela, we often, or we have to talk about the reason for really fostering autonomous technology, and you mentioned some reasons. What do you think is the key reason for, example, rail, for really pushing this technology, if you had to pick one?
Yeah, if I have to pick one, that is what I mentioned. If we want to bring the sustainability, most sustainable mode of transportation forward rail is at the moment, and hopefully will stay for the future. And we want to bring more people into the trains. And as we have already dense infrastructure, we have to make it even denser, and that is only possible with autonomous driving.
And Katrin, you're facilitators, but still, of course, you want to work with some promising use cases. What do you think is the most promising use case? Again, seen from this perspective of why are we doing this to begin with?
I mean, one of the most promising use cases or also adventures is really the safety topic, because a lot of accidents occur due to human errors, and with AI sensors, with machine learning technology, with all these AI-driven services and technology that is happening in that field, you really can mitigate the risk, save lives, and make also here the kind of the planet better, right? So, and besides safety, of course, what also helps is we can reduce traffic. I mean, we also at Unio, we work together with all the automotive OEMs, thinking about how can we also together with the cities, have less traffic, faster routes, brings us to less fuel consumption, which also leads then again, what Daniela just said, to less carbon footprint.
Jan, VIA operates transport as a service with, let's call it regular vehicles as well, with a driver. So why go autonomous? What's the added value there?
So I think it's very similar to what Daniela just said, right? The infrastructure can be used more efficiently, and I think anyone who's hung around mobility conferences, there's always a picture of a traffic jam that is electric and autonomous, right? So if everyone just uses their own electric autonomous vehicle, we don't solve all the problems. And so I think that's where the public transport use case is the exciting one, and that's where we think on-demand services are an exciting one, because you pool different people in there, right? So that's a benefit that we get, and I think we can use it to make mobility and public transport kind of more efficient, more effective, and more equitable. Like, it's efficient if you pool more people into the same vehicle, right? Like, you use infrastructure more efficiently, etc. You make it more equitable because everyone gets to try it. We talked a little bit about acceptance, how do people feel in it, and you can make it more effective because you are suddenly able to offer services in areas or for user groups that you otherwise can't really offer great service, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity to actually make public transport more attractive for everyone that is currently driving in their own private car. And again, if those people would in the future have their own private electric and autonomous car, we're not really much further than we are now. So I think that's the exciting piece of it.
And Germany has actually laid the groundwork for this. For those of you who are no experts in the field of mobility, you might be surprised to learn that Germany is actually a pioneer when it comes to regulating autonomous mobility on public roads. We are yet to see the real application in full-scale operations, but still very promising. Daniela, how is it in the railway industry? Is regulation a topic there? And if it is Germany leading?
It's a very important topic, and actually I envied the street and the automotive industry when this level 4 autonomous driving was released and approved. So we are still working on that, and there are two important things where we're currently teaming up with our minister really to say how can we speed up in this regulation process, because just as an example, when we tried the first train with a set of sensors, so the perception sensor set, it took us 1.5 years just for this test train to be approved. Yeah, that is one thing. And the other thing is, as we are part of the critical infrastructure, and we are, and it is good, the safest mode of transportation. But the idea is, if you want to introduce any kind of innovation, you have to prove that the level of safety and security is will continue as it is and will not drop down somehow. And just to show this or to prove this, is quite complex, and that takes us a lot of time as well.
I can say that complexity is happening on the road again as well. I think overall it's a very complex topic. Of course, when we talk about safety and so on, but at the very end, I think all of you mentioned this. If done right, autonomous mobility actually has the potential to improve safety by a lot. But of course, it's something we are all working on. So we learned that Germany is a pioneer when it comes to regulation, at least on the roads. But still, I think it's fair to say that the public perception here in Germany is that other countries are way beyond, are way more advanced when it comes to deploying autonomous mobility, being a bit more open towards technology in general as well. So, Katrin and Jan, a question to both of you. You're not only looking at Germany, you also have an international lens. What's your perception of Germany vis-a-vis other markets? How do you see it positioned, and where do you maybe see some best practices in other countries that we could profit from here in Germany as well?
I see a huge potential here in the German market. I mean, we have all these automotive OEMs, we have all the global manufacturer here, we have a huge technology, a lot of startups. But yeah, to make this happen and why there might be a differentiation to the US market, I mean, of course, there are even more startups in the autonomous mobility field like in Germany. I mean, due to the fact that really venture capital is a totally different topic in the US market than it's here. So when we talk about autonomous mobility, this is nothing that happened national-wide. It's nothing that happened within one industry. So I think it's really crucial that we work together across industries. We bring startup technology into mature, stable, huge companies, and that also on the financial side, we get more support from strategic investors, but also from financial investors to really drive these technologies we need to enable all the use cases that, for me personally, are very obvious, that I will immediately love a car picking me up in front of my house, playing the music I love and, you know, jump into. And so for me, a lot of use cases are there already. And yeah, I think when we join forces between different industries, have the support from the politicians, from the governments, international laws like also space law to make this happen, what we need to also combine satellite connectivity and 5G connectivity, then I'm super optimistic.
Quite a wish list, but I would definitely agree, particularly when it comes to cross-sector cooperation. It's also something that we as Bitkom always work on. So we want to bring OEMs together, we want to bring the telecommunications industry together, really all actors involved. So definitely agree there. Jan, I think you're actually based in the US, so you have a good idea of the market there.
Yeah, so
what are your takeaways?
So we're based in the US. We have quite a number of projects where we do deploy autonomous vehicles. We have some also in Germany. We have a project in Kelheim, in Bavaria. We have a large service in Texas, where I now live, in Arlington. We have a number in the US. I'm going to beat a little bit on the same financing drum, but I think maybe to talk about what we see in practice, because we asked ourselves the same question. We have different partners in different countries, and there's certain, there's quality differences too between which autonomous vehicle makers are further along than others. And there's a number of partners that we have in the US that are not active here. So the question was, why is that? Why are they not interested here? Is it regulation, whatever? And I think what we have to remember that a lot of these companies connected to venture capital, but also larger companies, have spent billions and billions of dollars in investing into this, into developing this technology, and are still doing that. And so they are laser focused on finding use cases that are commercially viable. And that leads to a situation that is similar to what we've seen with scooters and bikes and car sharing, etc. They are deploying this technology in inner cities, dense population, private ride-hailing services. Right? And to us, it's a problem Because as I said earlier, like if you develop this technology based on private ride-hailing companies, then it's still only one person sitting in the car. So we do want public transport to actually participate in it, etc. And so I think we have to think about regulation, but I think Germany is pretty well set there largely. We also have to think about how do we allow these companies to have viable use cases. And it's often not, government funding for the innovation piece. That's nice too, but it's really kind of long-term funding to be able to implement this, which public transport is, again, a nice use case for companies to potentially do that if the government kind of, has funding available for it. So there's a certain, I can almost call it market failure there, where it's, nice if government funding would go into it. So that's our experience. I would think about these like long-term commercial use cases if we want to see a widespread implementation of autonomous vehicles and, enable a landscape where these companies can do that. Right? To me, public transport is a fantastic area to play in, but it still needs some help.
So you mentioned some obstacles on the way to really pushing the technology forward. And obstacles are also the next topic I'd like to address. Daniela, I found it very interesting what you said, that also like having in mind, we just talked about how is Germany positioned vis-a-vis other countries, that you said, well, all the countries have the same problem. And there's no country where we say, well, they're fully autonomous on rails. So it seems like the problems are shared. What do you think are the biggest obstacles to overcome when it comes to really leveraging autonomous mobility on rails?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not so sure if we all have the same problem in Europe, because we in Germany have the biggest network on rails. So it's the longest and biggest network, and it's very much interwoven. Yeah, it's not like on a plane ride, you go from A to B and then you leave the train. We go with our train from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. And from this side comes A, B, C, D, E, and so on. So this is much more complex, as you see in other countries. That is one thing. And what is an obstacle is, as you already mentioned, in the sense of the investment and the funding. And I mentioned it, we would have to upgrade, in that sense, like 13,500 vehicles. That takes time. It's not the innovation cycle that we want to see, yeah? And it's also expensive. But on the other hand side, it's much cheaper than to build new tracks. And I think in Germany, and you talked about the carbon footprint, it's not really the discussion if we want to double the number of tracks. Yeah? So it's really to say use the number, the infrastructure that we have in a more efficient way.
I think that's a very good point to bear in mind. Katrin, again, talking about obstacles, where do you see the biggest obstacle on the way ahead?
Yeah, I think I said already, so really the key obstacle for me to make this happen, or the future use cases, is really to fill the connectivity and connection gaps. Because everybody knows, I mean, I'm living in Munich, so driving from Munich to Berlin, from Munich to Hamburg, I don't have seamless connectivity. I don't have seamless, always on 5G connectivity. But when we want to really have like sensors, being responsible for the safety for our lives and bringing us driverless in a driverless bus or train from A to B, we really have to rely on the best connectivity that is possible. So I see here really the obstacle, and therefore super excited to drive this with UNIO. We definitely need our own LEO satellite constellation for also sovereign Europe, and to also team up with the telecommunication providers in Germany. So satellite connectivity is not a kind of risk for the telecommunication industry. So as said, I think cross-industry, we all together have to work on the connectivity topic to then be able launch the services.
Jan, so Daniela mentioned in her keynote that the difficulty on rail is that you have autonomous and non-autonomous operations going side by side. I think you also have some experience with mixed fleets, right? So a fleet that has some autonomous vehicles, but also some regular vehicles. What's your experience with operating these fleets? Is that the way forward, so slowly integrating, or do you think it's maybe even more difficult to operate a mixed fleet?
So we're definitely huge proponents of having mixed fleets. I think there's a lot of benefits, and you know, even if technology isn't ready to be deployed in every weather or in every location, etc., and there's connectivity issues, etc., like on the technology side, it is ready enough to be deployed at a pretty large scale in the right places at the right times. The problem is if I have only an autonomous fleet, I cannot guarantee the type of level service guarantee that I need to make to customers and for them to actually start using the service. If they don't know if it like starts raining, is the car actually going to pick me up or not, or is the service going to shut down, I'm not going to become a customer, right? So having a mixed fleet allows you to give that kind of service promise to the customer, like the service will work, you can order a car. Now, whether or not that car will be an autonomous one or another one, that may depend on the weather that day or so, at least currently. But it allows you to really grow with the development of the technology. And we see that in our own service. Like in Arlington, in the beginning when we launched the first kind of autonomous part fleet, right? I think we were at 40% of the time where that vehicle was actually driving autonomously, right? The other time the driver had to do something or whatever. I think now we're at 90%. So while you're working with these vehicles, you can participate from every little step in improvement of the technology. And I think we can't forget that this development is kind of defined by the use case that the technology is deployed in. So again, right, if private ride-hailing companies are the only ones deploying AV vehicles, they will be developed for that use case. The technology will adjust to that use case. So we need to find a way to have public transport kind of help define what this technology looks like. And having mixed fleets, implementing it already today, with long-term funding is a great way of doing that. So I very much hope we do that more.
I think, Daniela, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in, just that we don't leave with a misunderstanding here. Niels, you mentioned that I talked about mixed traffic, autonomous and non-autonomous. When I talk about mixed traffic, I'm talking about high-speed traffic, the metro,
Yes.
and the logistics. It's important because the capacity gain only happens if we have fully autonomous trains, because you can imagine usually we have like fixed blocks so virtually, yeah, but fixed blocks on the rails, and you can say, when I said the braking distance is 3 kilometers, so it's even longer than that. And only if the train leaves this fixed block, then the next one is allowed to get into this block. And if we talk about autonomous driving, then we have like moving blocks that goes with a train, and that is how we create this density. And so that wouldn't work if you have a mixture of like moving blocks and this fixed blocks. That is the reason why. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that addition. Of course, very true. Now I'd like to ask you, the audience, another question. So when we started, I asked you who of you had already used an autonomous form of transport. Now I'd like to know who would like to use it or who could imagine using it. Show of hands, please. Okay. Who would rather not? Wrong crowd, maybe. Oh, one hand. Very good.
Yeah, but you all go by plane, right? So.
Who goes by plane?
Yeah, autonomous driving is there with the autopilot is already there as well.
But you would actually be surprised, because as Bitkom, we have an annual survey, and actually I have some numbers here, and the numbers are going up. So the acceptance of people who say, yeah, I want to use an autonomous form of transport is continuously going up. The last numbers were 68% for autonomous metro or S-Bahn and 66% for autonomous shuttle buses. And interestingly, the lowest numbers, I don't have the exact number, but it's in the 20-30% range, is planes. And then sometimes during the press conference, we actually get asked, like, why do you think the number is so low? And that's a very fair question, because most of the planes actually fly autonomous if they can do it. Yeah, but there I think maybe having a pilot on board is potentially a factor. But that's It's very interesting. So, speaking of acceptance, I think we're slowly running out of time. But Jan, Katrin, what do you think are key factors for improving the acceptance? We saw it here; it's already quite high. But as I said, maybe wrong crowd at this audience. I think you're all very techy. So yeah.
I think acceptance is helped by just opportunity to use it, right? So I don't know. The first time I was on an autonomous train was at some airport. I didn't have a chance, right? Like a choice. I had to jump on it. First time I did it, and then now I feel much more comfortable going on autonomous trains. But so again, I think that's I'm not getting tired to beat the public transport drum. But I think it is a great use case to foster that acceptance. People can try it out, and we need to go through level 3 experience to get to level 4, right? And so if people are in these vehicles when they're using public transport all the time, I think it's a great way of them getting used to it, accepting it, and doing so in a use case that will ultimately allow these vehicles to be shared and used as public transport vehicles versus private ones. So again, let's do more public transport autonomous projects in order to get the acceptance up.
Yeah, I wanted to add, for me, in the end, the customer decides and the user experience decides. No? When it's really a mobile office feeling, a mobile living room feeling in the car or in the train, then it's a huge benefit for me as a person, and then I can profit from this autonomous mobility even more.
We are running out of time. Sarah, do we have to stick to the time, or do we still have a couple of minutes? Okay, very good. The minister is here. I'm very happy about that. That brings me to my final question, a very short answer from a personal point of view. What form of autonomous mobility would you like to use personally? Daniele, maybe kick it off.
Far to the future, space taxi.
Space taxi, very nice. And remember the title of this panel, so we have the space there. Jan?
I had the same answer. When I saw the title of the panel, I was like, at some point, I hope I'm going to sit on some autonomous space shuttle. Until then, public transport on-demand vehicles it is, and I can do that today, so that's also great.
Of course, space taxi is something I hope to see, but coming from a new space company, a very simple use case is, as I said, so a shared mobility car knows at 7:30 in the morning that I have to leave the house. It stands in front of the house. The music is playing that I like. The temperature is what I want. It knows where I have to go because it's maybe linked to my calendar, and it's a perfect experience for me because I can jump into my Teams call. Maybe I bring my daughter to school. She's watching a Netflix movie. So yeah, make it easy. So this is what I wish for autonomous mobility with the best user experience.
All right, so our guest of honor is here. I don't want to keep all of you waiting longer. Thank you very much, all of you here, for being with us on stage. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay autonomous. Bye-bye.